Hi, welcome. I am Vanessa Howe Hodges. I am, I say jokingly, the Howe in Howe Resonance and Microsport device. I am a physical therapist by trade and developed the Microsport working with real athletes in real day experiences. I am happy to have Alison Picot here today. Alison has been one of our kind of leading edge, both practitioners as well as probably her biggest role, athletic mom. Right?
Yes,
But
yes.
the Picot family has been using our technology for quite some time. So long, Alison, that I have to admit that I don't actually remember how long it was or how you actually started using the microsport. Do you remember?
We started using the first time we ever came and met you was when you had your clinic in Rochester.
Okay.
My oldest son had a hamstring tear, and we came in, and that's when you weren't selling the units yet. You were just kind of, I think you were still in your developmental, you had developed it, but kind of trying to get it out there. And that's when we first started using it. And then we really started, I bought my own unit when my twins, it was probably right around 2021, right in there. Yeah. That's when we purchased one, and we've used them pretty religiously since.
Absolutely. And were they in high school at the time?
Yes. So my oldest was when he was a freshman. That was like 2016 when we came to you for the hamstring. He was a freshman in high school at the time. He's 3 years older than the twins, and then the twins kind of have grown up with it through high school sports. When my one committed to university for baseball as a freshman, and that's when we had to become way more aggressive with being aggressive with making sure that we don't get hurt, that things get healed fast, that things get healed the right way, and all of that. And that's when we really kind of dove in head first.
And I will jump in there and say, her sons are very talented, which most athletes will understand that if you're already even verbally looking at committing to a university in your freshman year, you're pretty darn good, right? And they are. But I do get you, the pressure, especially when you're working with athletes and there's so much on the line, a college scholarship, right? College tuition. It really does certainly up the ante, right? On making sure that they stay healthy through those high school years. Also understanding as an injury specialist that a lot of times when your child has that much talent, the tendency for them to be overutilized, right?
110%. Yeah, definitely.
So do you have any fun stories of those high school years where the microsport really became a critical component for anything specific for the boys?
Well, yeah. So probably the most, well, a couple of things. The first most impactful moment was the twins they were juniors at the time, and they both played football and baseball. Tate is a linebacker and tight end. And then I just know what he's supposed to do. I don't know exactly. And then Parker was a quarterback. So that one was an easy one, and a safety. That junior year, they played for Rochester Adams High School, and they made it all the way to the state championship. And during that time, Parker ended up with a MCL and an ACL strain and a pretty bad bone bruise in his knee area. So we started really intense. We showed up. I was more worried at the time, baseball, right? Oh my gosh, if his knees are hurt, he's very, very fast. That was one of the things, like, I think at the time he was in the top 10 in the country for speed for baseball. So I think I was really scared about that. The whole team was scared about making it to the state championship. And so we had gone to the doctor. They were telling us a lot longer of recovery time. We called you, got in there, drove over the next day. At the time, I think you were was that Birmingham kind of area, Bloomfield? And we looked at just renting the machine, and I was like, nope, we're just buying it. We need this all the time. It's just a safety mechanism. So we did that. He literally was out for like 2.5 weeks and that was just because the coaches didn't want him. They were afraid of hurting him and they didn't want to be responsible. But, we put him in some braces and he used that thing religiously. And that was it. Waited all the way to the state championship. He played in the state. I think that happened in October, like maybe early October, made it to the state championship, played with no knee braces on, full speed, full effort, full, range of motion and everything. So he's never had a issue since.
We love those stories. I mean, that, and there's so many that we have. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things
I was going to add to make it even a better story. So at the time, everybody at the school, the trainer, everybody was, the doctors that we were working in were all kind of befuddled by the results that we were getting from this. And so as the season progressed and we weren't having to use it on a daily basis, we started having like high ankle sprains, bad, knee kind of just torsion of the knee where they may be hyperextended or hyperflexed, I guess. And I would start hooking people up. Well, long story short, the school ended up buying 2. We have a friend who bought a 3rd one and donated it to the school. And now the school uses it religiously too on, boys and girls throughout their athletics, especially like basketball. It's really, really helpful. Those things that you need that really quick return to the court or the field.
Yeah. Rochester Adams has been really one of our great early adopters using it in the training rooms. And we love the training rooms that utilize our technology. I know Morgan, the trainer, had said the first year that they brought us in, 5 of their different athletic teams made it to state championships.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. And Morgan's actually really great about saying that, microsport is a big part of that. So
for sure. Yeah, it for sure.
I will say a fun story. I don't know if this is appropriate here, but when I first met Parker, you probably don't know this. He had told me, we were talking about baseball. My son is a bit older than him. And he actually, we figured it out that he was the one that actually, I think, ended the game and their playoff journey against my son pitching. It was Parker. So
Parker was pitching.
Yeah. No, when Parker hit on him and ended their season. So how fun. It all ends up full circle, really.
Yeah.
One of the things too, as you talk about bringing this in and making that decision, this is actually something that a lot of parents actually ask us about. One of the downsides of our technology is that it is a grade 2 medical device, and thus is not inexpensive, right? So usually around $3,000 to get into this technology. What can you say as far as the value that you get and your family even with having that higher price tag?
I just think that so I'm going to put on 2 hats here, my nurse hat and my mom hat. So my nurse hat hates the opioid stuff. I think it's something especially to be concerned with our younger population. I don't like my kids being on opioids. I've worked in the ER for 30 years. I've seen way too many kids come in, starts with a little injury, a little pill here, or mom or dad give them a pill to kind of get them through a pain. And then they end up, getting it the wrong ways. Almost, and they need it then. And they don't need it though. I feel like when I look at that from my nurse perspective, and then the science part of me really kind of understanding, and yet we still think we still call it at our house, the voodoo machine. If something's going wrong, it's like, call Vanessa, get the voodoo machine out, let it do its magic. And I guess I think that when you look at the decreased pain, the decreased recovery time, that's hard on kids, especially in today's world. And so for me as an athlete mom, I think that those things all together really make it worth that. And if you look at the number of years now that we've had it, so we've had ours for about 6 years, and I mean, it's $500 a year. And the number of doctor's visits that saved us, because if something happens, I just hook them up. I look through the the instructions and all the programs, and I pick the program that I think works. If I have a question, I contact you. And anybody who's bought one of these could attest to, your service is unbelievable. Because even being a nurse, I don't always know exactly. It's different than a physical therapist. It doesn't, work the same way in my mind. So I feel like the continuous support is better than calling the doctor or having to go in for a visit, call and you don't get a visit for another week. There's another week of swelling, inflammation, pain, not recovering the right way, probably. So.
And I, as a physical therapist, I can attest as well, a part of why I really had a focus when I developed the devices of having a section that's so easy to use for postoperative care. A lot of that was driven out of personal cases that I saw come through my clinic, where there was a time not that long ago, and this as a nurse, where the Vicodin was such a typical use for postoperative care. And it was like, treat with this very addictive medication so that you never have pain or you have very minimal pain. And see, literally, I think we both literally have seen lives ripped apart by the addiction that ensued from really often orthopedic issues after surgeries. And that is really kind of one of the strengths of microsport, is utilization after surgeries. And I'm pretty sure you guys have used it postoperatively as well. Correct?
So the other twin, Tate, he had a final football game of his senior year, had a Liz Frank fracture. So it ends up he has 7 pins in his foot that will be there for the rest of his life. And the doctor told us when we left the hospital that day, he said, it was a Friday, and he said, I had talked to him about it. He was really not so sold. He didn't understand, didn't know about it. And sometimes, doctors, they have their way, and that's the way, which is not a bad thing. But I wanted to try something different. I really didn't want him to be, gorked out on narcotics. And he told us, just don't be surprised. You'll probably be like 95% of my patients end up back in the emergency room on Sunday for pain control. So it's going to be the worst thing you've ever felt. Well, I was kind of like, oh my God, like this is sounds worse than having a child. So I hooked him up the minute we got home, and he took 0 narcotics. He did it to today. Like he says, it was a miracle. He tells people if somebody's hurt, he's like, you should let my mom hook you up. Like also my mom last year, she was 78 at the time, had a laminectomy. So she went from having extreme nerve pain. She couldn't walk 20 yards without having to stop and sit from nerve pain and discomfort, back pain. So she had this, hooked her up right when we got home. And she took, I think, 1 narcotic the whole time. And it was really kind of more because my sister is not a nurse, and she was like, the doctor says. And so I had to wait for her to leave to be like, yeah, no more narcotics. So, and it's not that I'm against the narcotics. I think there's a time and a place, but if you can do it without them, I don't know. It seems like the whole healing process was faster with both of those cases for us in our situation anyway. So.
And we've seen that consistently across the board. So if you can, and I think we talked about this previously before, is that a lot of times the key is getting it on right away.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can get the units working, and, we make them super simple. So the first program you run is it's in the post-op section, marked PO, and it's called Joint Run First. Right.
Yep.
So
I'm like an advocate of too. Like, I think the results that we've had, I feel like when I hook it up, like for those first, I probably go longer than I need to, but I with my son with the Liz Frank fracture and with my mom with the laminectomy, we did right before they would go to bed, I'd reset the batch. And I'd kind of time it out, like what time is it going to go off? And then I would get up and just go in, they'd be sleeping, and I'd restart it. So I would run it pretty continuous. I also think it depends on the person, their size, and the injury. And then, of course, I think like younger people maybe can tolerate a little more of the milliamps. So I turn it up. Yeah. And I just can't get over the results that we've had.
Absolutely. And that's actually, the batch is a great option. It wasn't available in the early versions of the microsport. And it can be easily upgraded even onto some of those devices. Believe it or not, we actually have units out there that have been out for about 10 years, which is kind of crazy. And so the batching allows, just for people to understand, it allows the option of placing up to 9 programs in a row. And it just moves from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And a lot of our athletes, even I deal with a lot of our professional athletes, our NFL, they all love the batch, right? And they all love it, treating it at night. And it's an amazing way to get a really long amount of treatment in a very easy kind of way. And then a lot of times with feet as well, feet from somebody who's had broken feet and surgeries that included the foot themselves personally, I can say they're incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And it's the swelling. So what microcurrent really helps very effectively bring down that swelling, also helping that healing process, as well as the pain. And you just don't ever end up in that scenario. With Tate, how was his recovery time, as far as what they expected him to be versus when he was actually ready to re-engage in activities?
So he had the fracture on like November 10th. It was like November 15th, I think. He had it on a Friday. We had surgery the next Friday. And then we got in the car to go to Alabama for Parker's official visit. So for Thanksgiving weekend, his recovery altogether, the doctor could not believe that there was minimal swelling. I mean, he could not believe it when we went for our checkup. So he was up on a scooter, wheeling like around, with a knee scooter, within 4 to 5 days. And the doctor was telling us 2 weeks. So long story, he said he didn't know if he would be able to play baseball that spring. And he was playing baseball and looking to play in college. And he was able to play. He was able to slide, everything. By February, he had full range of motion, running at full speed. I think we held off on sliding until like the first of the season because we were like, why slide if you don't need to, just for practice?
Absolutely.
And he's been full, ever since then. And every now and then he gets, I think it's just, if he's on his feet for a long, long time or wearing bad shoes, he gets some pain in that foot still, and he will throw it on. And, if he wears it a couple nights in a row, he's fine.
He's fine. Absolutely. Yeah. So can you, any changes in how it was utilized as the boys transitioned into college?
So so now Tate doesn't play anymore. Now he does manager down at University of Alabama. And Parker went to University of Alabama, and the first year took it with him. And, you go from being a high school athlete to a collegiate athlete. And we never had our kids, like for my family, we never had them play baseball all year. My kids were sport athletes, and I felt like that was really healthy and good. But now they went to playing baseball all year long for Parker. And, he got a little bit of just some strain in his arm. He'd get sore. He would just start to use that for recovery. So he'd just slap it on when he was doing his, homework at night. The machine is so small and so maneuverable that it's not cumbersome for them to put, he put it on and put it in his pocket. It's
not uncommon for our athletes, for our college athletes, to have them in a backpack.
Yeah.
While they're
nobody even knows you have it on.
No. And we've had there are certain times and people say, what are the downsides, upsides of this technology? Well, the downside is that it can take to really heal things at a super accelerated rate. It just takes more time. Right. But the nice thing is they don't feel it. And it's incredibly portable. They can put it in a pocket. They can take it with them. The other thing that I kind of say, and I don't think that the boys needed a lot of help when they were at campus, but they say if you have a college athlete, especially if they're on scholarship where there's a financial type of level, it is worth to have this. I don't want to say to my own, but to have me in your back pocket, right?
Yes, I think that it's if you have a child on a athletic scholarship, especially if it's a full ride, don't question $3,000. Like $3,000 is nothing in the big scheme of things. I mean, you're getting a couple $100,000 worth of education for free, but I mean, it's a job, but they have to maintain themselves. And that's part of being any type of athlete. He used it before. So when he was out of high school, he went to the draft combine for the MLB, and he was in the draft. He used it prior to that, just to he wasn't even in recovery mode. He was more just in preventative feel good mode. I
call it optimization mode.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Do your best. So, I mean, he used it then for that. I think there's just it's not just an injury treater. There's a lot that it can be used for. So. Yeah.
Yeah, when I have a nephew who, for the last 2 years, his little league team has made it pretty far in the nationals,
Mm-hmm.
and he loves the attention focus program for his pitching. So I don't know
Uh-huh.
if Parker has ever used that for his pitching, but yeah, I often say, sending your college age student off with this technology is really like you also get me in your back pocket, right? So
Yeah.
I have a lot of NCAA athletes who will use, they'll just reach out to me. Lacrosse players, lacrosse season.
Yeah. What program should I be running?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. They just want to make sure, and it's super easy for us to do that. So
So now they use them at Michigan State as well.
yeah, we do. And so that I really wanted to ask too about, like, what do you say to those parents that say, well, I shouldn't have to invest in this, they should get these at the colleges. And we are, as some colleges, peppered all over the country. But what would you say? Because now they are, I know Parker is at a university that does have our technology.
And actually, I think a couple of his teammates have bought them now too, individually. I think that the benefit of still buying it, whether your university has it or not, is I feel that you get more, I think you can maximize your results. Like, I think that when you can wear it, when we first started with my older son with the hamstring, it was, you would make an appointment, you'd come in, you'd do it. So you never got the continuous usage. And I just think, even though it sped up the recovery, there was room for a lot speedier recovery. And I think, like, as a athlete, whether, semi-pro, pro, whatever you want to call it, college level, I think that it's just you using it continuously. You could use it continuous for 3 days and be better, or you could use it part-time. Like, if your department only has 1 or 2, you are signing up for a slot, and then you're going like 3 or 4 or 5, 7 days in a row. I mean, you're just going to maximize the effect and the speed and everything.
A couple examples I have for people for that is like Bone Bruise, right? And I know you guys have used Bone Bruise. Bone Bruise is an amazing program. Bone bruises can linger. Doctors will say for months, but I've seen lingering pain for years that is related to a deep bone bruise. Bone Bruise, the program is called Bone Bruise, right? Very creative. And if it's a normal bone bruise, it's 1 to 3 treatments. Now, Bone Bruise is, I believe, a 30-minute program, or maybe it's a 50-minute program. So at the most 3 hours, right? So if it's a normal bone bruise, that can be resolved in 3 hours. If it's a bone bruise, I would say into the bone marrow by MRI, then it can take 3 to 6. But still, you're in a concerted amount of time. If you have the unit at home, you can knock those all out in an evening. Right.
And like a bone bruise, like if you're doing that in your knee, odds are that it's not just a bone bruise. There's probably an ACL or an MCL kind of, related to it. So like when we had that, we started off with an ACL injury. Then we thought, I don't know, he thought he was better. I know what it was. He was better. And then he got taken out by a rival school who knew his leg was hurt, and they did a below the belt tackle. And so then he ended up with his MCL and the bone bruise. And that was actually more scary than the ACL. The bone bruise was, because that's what he really felt like there's something definitely wrong. And I mean, so we really we batched it, treated all 3. We were good to go, like I said. And that because of all 3, it took a little bit longer, just, that's just the natural bodies. You're not fighting one thing, fighting 3, and things that weren't all the way healed that got re-injured. So, I think that it's just, I don't know why anybody would question it.
But the power of it, because a lot of times that's really what happens when you deal with these athletic injuries, is it's not just one thing. I know one of their teammates way back when came to me, and it was just a shoulder issue during football season. He was another one of the baseball boys as well. And he just, there were so many things that was even difficult for me to actually say, I'm like, go get an MRI. Right. Yeah. And there were 5 things. Once we knew actually all those things to run, he was back playing within a week.
And I think they bought a machine too, didn't they?
I think they did.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
He was a nice kid. So yeah, so it absolutely. Now, how I know you guys definitely have it down on the athletic programs. Have you guys played around with some of the wellness-based programs? Do you have any of those that are some of your favorites?
So I have more than the boys that, they're a little weirded out by that. They're like, they don't like to admit when they're not feeling well or sick anyway. So, but I've started using it just for sinus congestion. And I feel like it works, a little bit when I'm sitting down in the evening, relaxing, and I just hook it up and take care of it. And it seems to have helped, especially allergy season. All this right now is really bad. So yeah.
Our allergy programs were, I don't know if you'd realize this, but back when we ran an active practice, they were our number one cash base. Like when people would come in and just to sign up for the sinus allergy programs.
Yeah.
It's a critical thing because right now we are in the
heat of it. And it's supposed to be the worst year ever. And again, I like it. Like I'm not having to take medicine, and I pop Motrin and Tylenol. And if somebody told me I had to take it, I'll take it. But if you can do it without it, why not?
Absolutely.
Because we have the machine.
Yeah. And so I know you've probably been exposed to a lot of different technologies. There are a lot of, and for a gadget girl like myself, it's actually pretty exciting, right? There's a lot of new things out there in the magnet field and the red light and the lasers and all that stuff. How does your microsport compare to some of those other technologies? And where, how do those work into the recovery regime for you guys?
Okay. So before we used the microsport, when the twins were young, Tate had an elbow injury, and it was pretty concerning because we had the MRI and he had a partial tear, and he was only like maybe 11 or 12. Yeah, throwing way too much. And we had gone to physical therapy, really reputable, physical therapy center here in the Metro Detroit area. And we did magnet therapy, we did needling, and we did the light that they put on there. And it took so long. And he still wasn't 100%, I feel like, at the end, like where we had to be really careful from that point forward. The difference to me between those and the microsport is I feel confident. Like when we're running the program with the microsport, when you've seen the outcomes of it, you have no questions about it. Like, that it's going to be right when you're done with your program. And like I said, like I always run the programs a little longer than when you say, I'm really careful about it. Like nothing that's going to create the scar tissue things or anything like that. But like for the, muscles, tendons, strains, I'm always like, you know what? It's done. It's not hurting you. This machine is absolutely painless. You don't know you have it on. I think it's really, really great. So, and we used it later years, like in with baseball, we have used it in combination with sometimes like cupping or on a rare occasion needling. If it was something that was like we needed, like, maybe like, hey, today all of a sudden I woke up and I'm throwing in 2 hours. I need to get this released. So, maybe sometimes we might add in the needling with that, but.
And just, so that I can clarify for people that might listen, we don't have any problem with using our devices in combination with other.
Right. No, you've been really supportive. Yeah.
I teach and CEU courses on like the different technologies that are out there and the way that they put energy into the system and how you can actually use them symbiotically. There are times, in fact, an MSU player that I worked with a few years back, where we will use all three to super accelerate a healing process. But the strength and what we see often, I hear this from my NFL players, they'll get all these other things. They'll get stem cells in the training room, and they'll get laser, and they'll get the massage and the cupping and the PEMF. And many times the one piece they don't have is the microcurrent, and they add that in, and then
it's like that.
It's there. And it's so it is kind of I don't want to say it might be the original. It's actually, I think, the original bioenergy technology that's out there, but it's still, I don't want to say it's still king, but frequency specific microcurrent is still kind of the king if you really want to heal people.
And I'll tell you, like, I think that like Parker, he says oftentimes, like there are people that are become like really addicted. Like every time they turn around, they're getting cupped, or they're, now they're buying their own cupping things, or, going constantly for the needling. And he kind of feels like it's extra noise. Like, is it? Yes, it definitely, when you look scientifically at it, the cupping can definitely help increase blood flow, all of this stuff to the area. But like, he's like, I don't know that it's does the same thing as the microcurrent. Like, I feel like it's more one of those things like, well, I should get cupped. Like everybody's getting cupped. Well, we should get cupping. We should get, needling. And then, but not a lot of people are doing the micro current. And it seems like that's what it is. And it's hard to explain it to people because when you tell people about it, they think it's like a stim machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a stim machine. It's totally different. I love the whole concept of, understanding that it increases like the red blood cell reproduction, and that's how, really, that's how you heal. So
yeah. I actually just had a question today of like, is this a TENS unit, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to explain, TENS just masks the pain. Microcurrent reduces pain by reducing inflammation, increasing cellular ATP, laying down that collagen and elastin. So if you understand those basic principles, you can see why, yes, this technology is really like a leader in how to actually heal tissues, right? And we've been in that role. So, I will add in kind of there, because a common question I get is, why is this not better known? And it really is a very complicated technology, right? I don't know. You guys knew us before we actually had HoweRT. I always say I didn't create frequency-specific microcurrent. I just put it in a user-friendly, highly effective technology device, right?
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, that like when I'm explaining it to people, I think that if you don't understand a little bit of science, like it's hard for them to understand. They can't understand when you say, no, it's not a stem, it's not a TENS, it's none of this stuff. It's completely different. And you try and explain the way that it works. And, even the simple things like the importance of being super hydrated when you're using it. Like if you're dry, you don't have as quick of results. I always tell my kids, or like any of our friends that have had surgery, and I go and I hook them up. I'm like, you think that you're hydrated. You need to drink like 3 times as much, because water just helps this machine.
Right.
That's how the current travels, and that's how it stimulates and does all these things. Not
stimulates like. Yeah, I tell people it's the tiny current. It's tiny current. You don't usually feel it, which is really kind of different. And you want to be the wet sponge, not the dry sponge. Wet sponges carry electricity.
Right.
Dry sponges do not. Right.
Right. So. Yeah. And that's the first time we used it with my son with the hamstring. We used it where we went in and you did the wet towels with the alligator clips, and to go through. Because the wet, so it increases the current. So
yeah, it does. It confuses people sometimes, right? So
definitely, for sure, yeah.
So if you, so what would you say to a parent, that younger version of yourself, where you are have maybe middle school kids who have a lot of talent, early high school? What would be your advice from a recovery perspective, from what you've seen, and then also from a microsport perspective?
Recovery, take it seriously. If you don't recover right, then you're not going to play right, and you'll end up injured. And fighting an injury is way harder, longer, more of a roadblock than taking the couple minutes to do the recovery the right way. So I think that would be my advice to them in that sense. Like, invest in the stuff early. Don't wait till you have an injury to invest in it, because the one thing that I will say, and you and I have talked about this a ton, is, you try and explain this to people, and the importance of being able to have this immediately when you have an injury. So, you have an injury, you get home, you put it on. You don't wait 2 days to get into the doctor, or say it's, if they're not a regular customer and it happens on a Friday night, they're getting to you on Monday or Tuesday, maybe at best. And so I think the advantage of having something like the micro sport at home is just, it's unmeasurable. Again,
it is critical. There's something that we call in FSM world, frequency specific microcurrent, the magic window. And when you get it, and having it like you guys do, and I know that you guys do this, you get it on right away. We say it's about a 4 to 6 hour window that we call the magic window. And you get it on there, the swelling hasn't really, laid down and the bruising hasn't gotten there and the system hasn't gotten all congested. And it does super accelerate that healing process for sure.
Yeah, I think recently we were talking about a friend who had rotator cuff, and I said to him, I can come over and I can hook you up. No. Well, called me 2 days later. Pain is horrible. I can't handle it. And I get kind of frustrated because I'm like, okay, like I told you got to get this on right away. And now we're any injury, when you're chasing it, it's a lot harder. You always want to be ahead of it. And the microsport just gets you, I mean, yards, days ahead of yourself in recovery.
I tell people that then we're in catch-up mode, right? And so we have to catch up ahead of that. And we still help. But
it definitely still helps. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely still help.
Not the same overall long-term effect. Like the recovery is just so shortened when you get it on right away.
Yes.
And I feel like it's just a stronger recovery altogether.
Absolutely. So I think I know your one word on this, but if you had to have one word to describe microsport, what would it be?
You do know it. Voodoo. It's witch magic. We call it the voodoo machine.
It's not magic. It's good science.
Nope. I know, but the kids' mind, and when they started using it, they called it the voodoo machine. And then of course, Vanessa. So it was Vanessa Voodoo for years was how we were programmed in the phone. So they would pull it up and they say, "Mom, you need to call the voodoo lady." So
absolutely. Before we kind of wrap up, are there other things, Alison, that you can think of that you'd like to share?
I've used it for bloating. Like, I used it for, I was trying to lose weight. So before, when I was losing a lot of weight, I used it for, just overall general health. I just think that, there's so much that I haven't even used it for that I know that I probably should. I just don't take the best care of myself as I do everybody else in the house. So everybody else gets to use it. I think that it's something that if you have an athlete that's in a serious pathway it's a serious pathway for their future, I think that it's something that it's just, you need to have this as part of your arsenal, because as a parent, when you are raising a child like that, you are everything. You're the nurse, you're the doctor, you're the, agent, you're the, I don't know. Their protector. And I think that the best way to do all that is, you have to know your kids and the situation that they're in, and then figure that out and treat it. And probably not to keep going on, but I have twins, and they both describe things completely different. And so, you have to be an advocate for your kids, because you can't just go to the doctor every time they've got a bump and bruise. And as athletes that are progressing down that pathway, that's just part of it. That's part of what happens to their bodies. They're growing fast. They're, in impactful situations. I think it doesn't matter what sport, they're probably always overusing compared to the average, but their bodies are kind of built for that too. To get to that level, they have a little bit different makeup in their body than I think most do. But I think you just gotta do things and invest in things that are going to help to put their recovery, their safety, their health first. And this is a tool that's definitely worth it.
One of the things, and I think you can attest to this too, is as an injury specialist, I see a lot of, I call it fallout. And whenever you create a transition, I know you've been with this with your boys, is you'll get some fallout. Like you'll get a number of kids, the vast majority, that will transition from, say, high school to NCAA, and then also NCAA to professional levels, or elite Olympic types of things. And there, a lot of times that fallout, what the main thing that makes them wash out, isn't usually talent. It isn't usually skill set. A lot of times it is injuries. And part of why my heart has always been in helping younger athletes is because when I help these older athletes in these transitional periods, many times I'm addressing injury types of biomechanical issues that happened when they were younger.
Years ago. Yeah.
And so really it's so critical. Yes, we love that we have so many professional athletes that utilize our technology. I don't know if I had told you, we track our contract values of athletes that purchase every year. And last year, 2025 at this point, was over 800 million in contract values, right? So a lot of top athletes that utilize us, but it's just so much, it's still so essential for those younger athletes.
Yeah.
And those,
I was going to say, I think like the older they get, like the professional athletes, I kind of feel like, they're really open about it with their friends, but they're not open about like that they're using the technology all around because they want the edge. Like, and that's like, that is part of like, these reduced recovery times and the health maintenance and all this, that's part of like becoming an athlete at the next level. And, you don't share all your secrets with everybody.
We are a secret weapon. We do. It makes it hard because we have so many household names that use us, and and yet we're the secret weapon, right? So they'll share with friends. Sometimes they even buy units for their friends,
for sure.
But they don't do that. So there's the line gets drawn there, right? So absolutely. So I want to say thank you very much for all the time that you've taken with us. I think you have such a great, unique perspective of utilizing this technology. I think you guys do an amazing job with it. I look forward to a lot of amazing stories as your boys continue on either and in athletics and maybe not in athletics. Anything else that you can think of?
You know what else we've used it for? My older son has plantar fasciitis. We've used it for that too. And he will, if he has a flare up within 12 hours, probably.
Yeah.
He's set.
It's amazing. Those of us who have it can't believe people live without it.
Yeah. I think you find yourself like, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking of all the additional things and I'm like, oh my God, like we really use it like way more. When people ask you about it, you think of the big things that were like, big moments that could have been decisive and like the pathway that, you end up taking. But the things that we use it in every day are probably just as significant.
They are. It's the day-to-day stuff, truly, right?
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm all set. I really appreciate it. We love our machine and we appreciate all your help all the time.
Oh, that's what I always say. That's what I'm here for. So, one of the things, and as you alluded, we created this technology when we had a large, robust practice, and you remember that it was pretty busy. It was happening. Today my primary role is to support you, support your kids. I actually love hearing from my NCAA kids. I get little texts. I know they're desperate. I always kind of tell them
they're panicked.
Think of me as your recovery mama, and that I'm here for you for sure. It actually is not that hard to support people through their processes. But I loved how you touched on, it's not just about the recovery aspect. It's critical. It's very critical, but there's so much more. Microsport isn't just about recovery. We love that we are really helping people on a wellness level as well as metabolic. But it's also, as an athlete, it's about staying ready, like staying consistent, and maximizing performance over time. I think, especially Parker, with all of his progress that he's made, and, I know he's certainly probably looking at MLB, and MLB is looking at him, most importantly. It's amazing to me to watch the young people go from that Parker that was, I worked your son's butt to now here, going into the MLB and beyond. We make sure that you follow us. I know I talked to you about this, but we are now on my Instagram. Our team is putting together some amazing content. We'll definitely have to get some of your boys and your family in there. So definitely follow us at Microsport Recovery on Instagram and Facebook, and also our new website. And hopefully we'll get some of your kids on there as well. So thank you for joining. Anything else you want to add before we kind of totally stop the taping?
I think I'm all set.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Alison. This has been amazing.